Transfer portal? What are you talking about? You think anyone will hit the portal this year?
I mean, maybe. It's a possibility still up in the air.
What are we at? There's over 1,000 in there right now, Alec, right?
Yep, over 1,000, and there's still going to be a few good hundred more. So obviously, I think it was a little bit later last year that we hit 1,000. So just the fact that we're here before Final Four weekend and already at 1,000, and still a lot of those guys, not committed anywhere. Still a lot of guys who are going to leave teams here in the next, I would say month and a half. So it's gonna skyrocket again. And we talked about this all last year. All this offseason is every single year now moving forward. I think that number is just going to get higher and higher because these kids just they see another opportunity somewhere else, and they're going to get recruited over. And for better or worse, that's just the way the college basketball is, and the offseason is going to be from now on.
Absolutely. And Indiana, of course, waiting on a couple of decisions. Trace and Race specifically, I guess. I'm not expecting it. I don't think there's anyone else that they're expecting a decision from, to my knowledge. But they already, with 4 already in, that would make 6 total. That's exactly what I thought we would see. That means that would give, if that were to happen, that would give them or force them to pull 3 guys out of the portal, which they did not do a very good job of last year. But inexperience, first time going through it as a staff, kind of late to the game. They've got, this year will be a whole different scenario. I think that they will do completely different this season, and I think that they will hit the home runs that they need to hit.
Yeah, and they need to hit the home runs, right? I mean, there's no doubt about it. Last year, you had a little bit of wiggle room with that, with Trace Jackson Davis coming back, and you had kind of your main core. You already had Xavier Johnson, who was committed at that point before they kind of got the additions of Miller Kopp and Michael Durr. But yeah, this year it's a lot more of a priority, not only on big time impact players, because you're not going to have that scoring that you had in the front court. You're not going to have some of the expected shooting, right? That for the first couple months of the season that you had from Parker Stewart. So you're going to need to find shooters. You're going to need to find bigger, more physical, versatile wings. And you're going to need to find a front court player. And the names are starting slowly to trickle out, but Indiana still needs to figure out what their roster is going to actually look like going into the transfer portal before they can really do much there. Obviously, they have a few scholarship spots already open, but at the same time, they need to. I think Mike Woodson really understands now what he needs to do to build his team the right way through the transfer portal. And I think over the last week and a half, it's transitioned a lot more into, okay, Indiana's definitely going to make a few additions through the transfer portal, and instead of adding another member of the class of 2022 through the high school ranks. I think that's the way that Indiana's trending at the moment, especially with the fact that they have not officially offered kind of that last guy for them in Adu Thiero, who picked up a Kentucky offer, picked up an offer from Pitt as well, in Maryland over the last week. So that seems to be trending elsewhere. So you look at what Indiana has, and it has to come through the transfer portal at this point.
Yeah. I'm curious, why is it taking Race Thompson, I wonder, as long to come out with a decision? Dylan, do you think? He's someone who went through senior day ceremonies, so I would have thought he would have been someone a little closer to a decision already. Obviously, either not, or sometimes I wonder if with an agreement with the coach, they keep the announcement muted for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he hasn't already made a decision and they're waiting to announce it until a certain moment. The other part of it is it's possible. I mean, he and Trace are really good friends. Maybe he's waiting for Trace to make an official decision before he decides for himself. They've been roommates for all these years. They clearly enjoy playing with each other. Maybe they're kind of a package deal at this point. That's obviously speculation on my part, but it's just there's other possibilities that Race Thompson has to kind of figure out here. But you're right. He did go through senior day, although he said after senior day that he had definitely not decided yet. And the emotion that we saw from him that day was more about the possibility of it being the last game, not that he had already decided that it was his last game.
Yeah, so we'll and how much longer do you think that because Race is not waiting for the NBA draft deadline, so his quote unquote deadline, I guess, would be further out for the portal as opposed, but I don't think the staff either would want to wait that long. But of course, they want to go out and get the guys they need to get. That's what happens when you wait too long or you miss the boat on somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the same time, right, they're going to have to address those positions regardless of if Race Thompson comes back or not. So I don't think in this scenario that it really impacts too much. And I think for him, holding out as long as he wants, right, is also just going to continue to benefit him, where he can now see which rosters, kind of how they play out. If he does, hypothetically, let's say, decide to enter the transfer portal, which I don't think is the route that he's going to go, right? I think it's either going to be he moves on from college or he does come back to Indiana. I think those are the two options you're looking at. But for him, right, I mean, there's still so many different things that go into roster movement throughout the offseason here. And there's still so many class of 2022 guys that are unsigned, right, over the last 2 weeks. So there's a lot of things that are still going into kind of building rosters here over the next 3 months. And so for Indiana, right, you're going to probably wait that out as long as you can, because you're probably not going to find too many guys, especially big men, out in the transfer portal right now that are going to be as productive as Race Thompson next season. So, that's kind of where you're at. You're really pushing hard to obviously maintain one of those two bigs, and one of those two bigs are going to be better than probably what you're going to be able to find in the transfer portal. So you wait that out if you're Indiana. I still think at the end of the day, I wouldn't be surprised if Race Thompson comes back. I don't think you're going to get both Race and Trayce Jackson-Davis. I don't think that's going to happen. But, if you pair one of those guys again with Xavier Johnson, who is pretty much expected back at this point, then, you have a really good core foundation in partnership there between your front court and your back court. And then you add the other pieces that are returning, the new pieces, especially with the Jalen Hood-Schifino, and kind of pair him with Xavier Johnson. And you look at your roster and now you kind of know where you need to address it. And that's, again, still goes back to shooting and still goes back to some bigger perimeter players.
I thought it was interesting. If I can jump in. Yeah, you talked about it. It looks like Xavier Johnson is returning right now, and we saw like at the end of the season, I figured he would make some kind of announcement that he's coming back. Maybe he won't even make an announcement at this point. Maybe he's just coming back because yesterday we saw him kind of visiting a school with Anthony Leal as like an IU basketball player. Yep. And apparently, like, he asked to do something like that. And, like, it seems pretty clear at this point that he's kind of made that decision, and maybe we're not getting an announcement from that. But I thought that was interesting that it's just kind of – maybe he thought in his mind that it was obvious he was coming back because he has another year of eligibility, and he liked playing for Mike Woodson so much. But I just thought it's kind of an interesting development how that's happened since the end of the season.
Yeah, and I think the Rob Finney transfer, unofficially was that announcement that Xavier Johnson's coming back, right? Because we knew – both of those guys weren't going to be back on the roster next year. And I think everyone kind of pointed to, especially the way Xavier Johnson played in the last month and a half of the season as a real turning point to, hey, what can he do if he has now another full summer with Mike Woodson to not learn the offense, but just improve with the offense, right? Because a lot of these guys, again, had to learn an entirely new offense. Mike Woodson was still kind of learning the kinks of college last summer. So, I think that still is a huge underrated factor that, Xavier Johnson now has a full year and a half of knowing what this offense is about and having that confidence. So, I wouldn't be surprised if he just doesn't make a decision, right? I mean, we're in the age now where everyone has to make a decision or make an announcement, to make everyone kind of at ease when 5-10 years ago, it was just assumed that everyone was coming back unless they made some sort of announcement. So that shift is definitely interesting. But yeah, I would be shocked at this point if he decides to leave or go elsewhere.
A lot of names in the portal of familiarity. The first one that comes to mind is Nigel Pack, one that was not even recruited by Indiana when he came through here, which was a mistake. But it's a lot of times it's timing. And as far as what Indiana needs, what they're looking for, what their needs will be, that's part of the reason talking about this on who's Trace and Race coming back or not. Your needs are different, whether or not they are. So that's also holding things up a bit. But sometimes, like I said, maybe the staff knows already. I don't know if Trace has told them, hey, I don't want to announce this yet, but this is what I'm going to do. Or maybe Race has done that. Or maybe they've gone to them and said, hey, can you give me an indication at least? I don't know what's going on, how that works out between them, because sometimes the schools want to keep it under wraps for their own purposes of what they're looking to do.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of these situations do happen, especially when, you see these announcements put out there on social media from the, made from the university as well. So wouldn't shock me if these guys have either already made a decision or have given the staff some sort of, feeling of kind of what they're going to do, especially at this, part of their careers and the importance and the role that they played last year. And for this program over the last few seasons, right? I mean, the staff is going to give them as much space as they really want, but at the same time, they still need to move forward with building a roster. So I'm sure they have some sort of feeling one way or another what that direction is going to be. But going back to Nigel Pack, I don't think Indiana is going to be involved. I don't think he fits exactly what they need. Right? They have a lot of ball handlers coming in, and with the roster here for the next year. He can really only play one position, right? Obviously, he's a terrific scorer, much more efficient this past season than he was his freshman year. Obviously, with what could be deemed as much less pieces on that Kansas State team than what Indiana will have next year. But if you look at Xavier Johnson, you look at Jalen Hood-Schifino, that's a really solid backcourt. I don't think you're going to pair Nigel Pack with those guys. At the end of the day, they may kind of kick the tires there, but you look at a team like Purdue in an opening that they have starting at the 1 next year. They lose Jaden Ivey too. They lose Travion Williams. They have a lot of scoring that's needed, and that seems like a perfect fit for Nigel Pack to go there and kind of take over that Jaden Ivey role. So wouldn't shock me to see him go there, just because the role that he would play there is vastly different than the role that he would play at Indiana. And I just don't think two very ball dominant guards in Xavier Johnson and Nigel Pack would work out great, especially when you're trying to really bring up a guy like Jalen Hood-Schifino, or even you look at a guy like Tamar Bates, who's expected to have a much bigger role in that offense next season.
Another name that has been popping up, speaking of Jalen Hood-Schifino, is a current teammate of his who recently decommitted from Florida, Malik Renaud, and that would be a potential good fit for Indiana, but depends. They can't replace Trace Jackson Davis if he were to leave with a freshman, with a high school recruit, and be successful next season. So that's, to me, it's a pick your poison kind of thing, Dylan. That's how Iowa State went from going 2-22 to the Sweet 16. It wasn't by going through the high school route. So that's something else that they have to look at, and it's how you have to balance your recruiting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so they would have to go probably find someone. That's the thing, is they need someone who is a significant front court player. It would be great to get Malik. Obviously, that would be something that they would love to do. But yeah, you're right. They need experience in that position. It would be, and that's why they're still waiting on Race Thompson, obviously. But yeah, it's something where they have Caleb Banks coming in, they have Logan Duncan coming back, but neither of those guys really have any experience in college. And you add someone else without any experience, it's just a question of, do you have anyone on this roster that has played this position on a regular basis before at the college level? And so you need someone to at least help bring these guys along. And if they end up being so good that they can start almost immediately, then great. But you need at least a backup plan to make sure that if they aren't ready, you have something else ready to go.